So let's start off with level 0, your first days in business. And in level 0, we talk about correct perspectives. These are very important. We're going to talk about 5 perspectives that are somehow a myth or an error of judgment for many people. And the first one we're going to talk about is the fantasy of ownership. Let me explain this within a story. A while ago, I've been a consultant for a chain of restaurants in Mexico, in Latin America. And I've flown in, I've been there on site, working with the team, making sure everything is going well. And at one point, I had a conversation with the pizza guy. And he made delicious pizza. It was so good. And I was talking to him about perspectives, like, where do you want your life to go? And he said, oh, I can't wait to own my own restaurant. I'm like, owning? You want to own your own restaurant? Why? He's like, well, because then I can make all of the pizza I want and I can do it the way I want to. I'm like, okay, but I've been here for a few weeks now. I've never seen anyone tell you how to make pizza. Do you feel someone's telling you what to do? Like, no. Do you feel someone's constraining your creativity and what ingredients to put or what combinations to do? They're like, no. So, okay, well then, why do you actually want to be the owner of a restaurant? Well, I feel I'll be less burdened and I'll have more time and more creativity and so on and so forth. And then I told him, okay, so just to be clear, right now, the only thing you need to do is to make pizza. And the only thing you like doing is to make pizza. So there's a 1-to-1 ratio between the things you need to do and the things you like doing. However, if you start a business, you need to understand that you will need to deal with landlords for the place. You'll need to deal with vendors for your ingredients. You'll need to deal with staff, all of the staff, the other cooks, the other pizza makers, the people servicing, and so on and so forth. You'll need to deal with marketing. You will need to deal with accounting and tax paying, and the list is endless. And I literally told them, these are all of the things you need to do, or you need to make sure gets done properly as a business owner. Do you really want to do all of this? Like, oh no, I don't want to do any of that. Okay, so this is the fantasy of ownership. I had a very productive conversation with them, and I want everyone to understand that managing a business doesn't mean that you will not have a boss. Managing a business or owning a business means you'll have 100 bosses. Every single client you have will be a mini boss in themselves because they will have their own expectations, they'll have their own deadlines, they will have their own service that you need to deliver, and so on and so forth, right? The difference between someone employed and someone that's a freelancer is that someone that's employed has one boss and then someone that's a freelancer has 20, right? And that's it, but they do the same amount of work. Oh, and the freelancer needs to find their own clients whether someone employed gets clients from the company. So again, there's a fantasy of ownership, and it's the grass is always greener on the other side, but it's not true. I recently had this conversation with the director in a company, and they're like, well, if I maybe would get a job somewhere else, I wouldn't have all of these responsibilities. I'm like, no, because you would never accept clerical work. You would never be just someone filing books or doing things. You would always want a salary that goes with the director level position. And in a director level position, whether you own the company or you work for someone else, you don't own the company anymore, but you have a stable job, you still have the same responsibilities, right? So again, there's a fantasy of ownership that we want to tackle here and make sure you have your perspectives correct on it. So what I recommend you do is you do research on what does it actually mean to own a business, or what does it actually mean to be a high-level director or a competent manager, or whatever your career goals are. And the best thing I can recommend, and this is the first action step I recommend you to do, is to find someone who is already in a position that you want to be in. So if you want to be an owner of a video publishing company or whatever, a filmmaking company, then talk to filmmakers, talk to those people and see what do they do, how did they get there, and so on and so forth. You'll find that many of them will be willing to have a half an hour or an hour conversation with you and answer all of your dumb questions so that now you can have the correct perspective. Okay, so now we can move on to the second point, to the second perspective here, and that's around creating value. So most people, when they start their careers, or when they become or want to become entrepreneurs, or they want a director role or things of that nature, typically in most cases they do it for the money. They do it because they want to make more money, which I believe is fundamentally flawed. Even the Bible says the desire for money, or something like that. It says the desire for money is the root of all evil, right? So it doesn't say money is the root of all evil. It says the desire for money is the root of all evil. So it's basically greed, right? Greed is the root of all evil, because you want more and more and more. There's nothing wrong with wanting more. What the issue is to have the correct perspective. Again, your perspective going into your career or going into a business should never be to make more money. It should be to add more value, right? This is something I've learned when I was young. My parents, I've had amazing parents. I'm so grateful for them. My parents told me that always leave something better than the way you found it. So if you rent an apartment, that apartment needs to look cleaner when you leave than when you got in there. And it's the same thing in business. You should go in business wanting to give value, whether you want to give value as a content writer or as a video producer or as a engineer. You want to create amazing things, whatever, however you want to add value, or as a manager, as a director, it doesn't matter. Focus on the value you bring. So whether that's entrepreneurship or managership, if that's a word, within there, the next action step I would like you to take is to provide as many answers as possible to the question, in what ways am I or will I be creating value? And this is very, very important. Have at least 10 answers or 20 answers, because you want your perspective and your focus to be correct. You shouldn't go into business, let's say as a marketing agency, thinking, how can I get more money from my clients? You should be thinking, how can I make more money for my clients so I can ask for a pro rata back as a semi-commission, so that I can make millions, but they will make tens or hundreds of millions. Moving forward to the third step, it is the perspective of never-ending innovation. So the concept here is that most people think that, oh, I will implement this lead generation funnel and I'll just have leads forever. Or I will create this method of management, this structure, and this structure will just work forever. It doesn't work like that. We should always focus on never-ending innovation, because everything changes in life. Every industry changes, every generation changes. You can just look at generational differences between people born in the 90s, in the 2000s, in the 2010s, and so on and so forth. You see significant changes between how you manage these different types of people that have been born in different spans of history, let's say, or compare someone that was born in the 80s to someone in the 2000s. Very, very different mentalities, very different people, different ways of managing them in general. So the only certainty in life is change. So the correct perspective is, you don't build a business once or build a team once and then that's it, it's just going to function forever. You should think of yourself as the constant innovator, as the Edison, right? The light bulb guy of every single team or every single company you join. And so the action step here is to please make it a principle of yourself as a professional that every single month you'll find something to do better than you did last month. If you're really ambitious, you can do this every week. Every week you can ask yourself, what's one thing I can do this week, or what's one thing my team can do differently this week, so that we can basically be always one step ahead of anything that's coming. By the time people realize what we're doing, we're already 5-10 steps ahead of them. After that, step 4 is probably the step that helped me most out of every single thing that I've ever learned. And that is the principle of taking full responsibility for every single thing in your life. And when I say full, I mean it. I mean 100%. I don't mean 99.9%. I mean 100. So let me give you a couple examples for that. So let's say you're in a relationship and you have a girlfriend or a spouse or whatever. So within that relationship, if I would ask you, what's your degree of responsibility for the success of that relationship? You might say 50%, right? It's 50% me, 50% my spouse. And I would say that that is false. For the success of that relationship, you need to take 100% responsibility. And you can't say, for example, oh, what if I do everything and they do nothing? Okay, then it's your responsibility to end the relationship because you're adding so much value and they're obviously not reciprocating, or you haven't told them, you haven't explained to them how they need to reciprocate the love or the care or the attention that you're giving them. Okay, and this is the case in many relationships. So you don't need to stay in a relationship where that's professional with the business or with the boss or with the client, or you don't need to stay in a relationship personally with a friend or with a spouse, right? You can end relationships if you can't add value and be reciprocated in however you want to be rewarded for that value that you bring. However, as long as you are in that relationship, you need to take 100% responsibility. It's the same, for example, with employees. So if you have someone on your team that is being a pain to work with, you need to set the rules. You need to say, hey, you cannot swear, you cannot talk badly about your colleagues, you cannot do this, that, or the other, and these are the rules of the game. This is how we're going to play this game. If you don't like this game, you can go and play another game with someone else, but here, this is how we play. These are the rules, and you need to also be willing to take feedback, either from a spouse, again, or either from a colleague or from a client. It's regardless of what you're looking at, every single thing in your life that you have right now, if you're in your late 20s or in your 30s, you're responsible for. Whether you're experiencing abundance or scarcity, that is for all of the decisions and actions you've taken so far. So if you want something different in your career or in your business, you need to take 100% responsibility, and that is the only position of power that will allow you to implement everything we're going to talk about today, and then to make sure you thrive for years and decades to come. Okay? And so after this is point number 5, which is a little bit, I like this stuff because it keeps me going, especially in bad days, but it's basically a list of reasons. Why are you doing what you're doing? What are your reasons? For example, some of the reasons on my list on why I'm doing what I'm doing is, number 1, I want to leave a positive impact on people because I have gained so much out of the, let's say, love and care and attention of other people throughout my entire life, and I want to give back. I want to succeed financially because I have a child, because I have a wife, because I have parents that will need care eventually. I want to do good on my health because I want to live longer. I want to play with my grandchildren and maybe even my great-grandchildren, who knows, right? So for everything you do in life, whether it's career or personal, you need to have a list of reasons. Write down as many reasons as you can, and whenever you have a bad day, take out that list of reasons and then use it, right? So the action step here is very clear. Write at least 10 reasons for why you will finish watching this video and then implementing everything, or everything that makes sense for you. I would suggest implementing everything, and this is what our recommendation is. Never follow something 90% and then say, oh, that doesn't work for me. Either you follow something 100% and do it exactly the way the author or the coach or the mentor or the, whomever you're getting advice from explains it, or you cannot say it doesn't work, because anyone can do something half-baked. Anyone can do something for 50% or 70 or even 90%, right? Doing something 100% exactly the way it is described, that takes professionalism, that takes determination, that takes ambition. That is the only way you can achieve all of the things that you want in your life. You can't say that you can attain Olympic athlete level health and fitness and competence and skills without playing at the same level as the Olympics, which leave nothing on the table. They implement 100% of what they need to do. If you implement 90% of what you need to do, you will never make the Olympic team. Maybe you don't want to make the Olympic team. I'm just saying that for as long as you want something, you want to achieve something, let's say your goal is to become a millionaire, right? Literally to have assets worth more than $1 million or whatever it is. If you're not there yet, and that is something very important to you, follow something, some form of advice, whether that's ours or someone else's, 100% until you achieve that goal. And then once you achieve that goal, you can stop doing it, or you can do something else, or you can try something else. But do something for 100%. That's why I recommend watching this video until the end, picking everything. Again, there will be many action steps. We already gave you a few that should be very helpful. And then if you implement everything we talk about here, you will be blown away by how much more progress you can make every single year in your life and in your career. So moving on from there, we will talk very briefly about the inception of a legal entity or contracts in general. If you're not responsible for incorporating or for being the administrator of a team or of a company, and you're just part of a team, you should still be looking at contracts. So in general, I recommend everyone take mini courses on how things should be run. So for example, if you own a limited liability corporation in the US, you should know what are your duties, what are your responsibilities, what are your liabilities, because you can't just wing it. I mean, you can wing it and then you risk a $50 million lawsuit, right, for whatever it is you've done. And part of that can pierce the veil and can become direct debt for you. And you need to be careful of these things. So my co-author, Aaron, and we have this book. I will mention it a few times, but we have Unshackled, the 7 Levels of Business Excellence. Everything we're going to talk about today is already in the book, but this is an extra, let's say, way in which we add value. I'm going to try to explain all of it here. And we go to a little bit deeper here. However, Aaron has, I think, Aaron through Laughlin have incorporated hundreds of thousands of companies in the US, and they've helped all of them make sure they have what they call a legal moat around them so that they're very safe. So basically the action step here is to, whether you're looking at incorporation, whether you're looking at employment contracts or contractor contracts, whatever, make sure you learn and protect yourself, because there's no bigger, let's say, or faster and better way to get into a scarcity mentality than having a lawsuit against you. It's horrible. You don't want to be there. We haven't been exactly in lawsuits. We've been threatened before and so on and so forth, but because our contracts were bulletproof, we were able to be in very, very good positions every single time. And I was just so grateful that we've taken the time to do this, right?